Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now, obviously there are a few differences and a few changes that I'm going to address straight away. Firstly, I got a haircut and I've had a shave. So don't be alarmed if you don't recognize this handsome face looking back at you. Personally, I hate my shave and I can't wait for my beard to grow back. And you'll also notice that I am filming this video inside of my car. We are just coming into winter. If you follow this channel for a while, you'll know that I did a lot of videos outside. And that's because it actually is pretty hard for me to find a quiet place for me to film these videos. So I might be doing more videos inside of my car. Hopefully this goes well, because it just means that I can keep giving you consistent videos and quality videos. So wish me luck that all the editing happens well and there's no echo in here. And the final point is I wasn't actually planning on putting out any videos this week because I got my, you know what, I can't say the words, otherwise the YouTube gods will get angry at me. But it was my second dose and it absolutely put me on my ass. I was bedridden with a fever for 2 days, just sweating, just hot and cold at the same time. You know, it wasn't even nearly that bad when I got my first one. My first one, I just kind of had some achy bones, some achy joints. But this second one absolutely just blew me out of the water. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about One Piece. Specifically, let's talk about the Drum Island arc. This one was awesome. I loved this one. I was not expecting, nobody warned me how emotional this one would be, with everything that happened with Chopper, everything that happened with the quack doctor that adopted Chopper, and then the crazy grandma Kura, I believe her name was. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but I'm going to call her that. Kura. I do have a couple of questions though. Specifically one, I know Chopper's name is Chopper, because his father, the quack doctor, says to him that he looks like he has strong antlers that could take down a tree, and that's why he calls him Chopper. But why does he call him Tony Chopper? I feel like that's some kind of pun, or that's some kind of joke that didn't translate as well as it could have, or perhaps I'm just dumb and don't know what that's meant to mean. Maybe they mentioned it and I just didn't pick up on it, but I understand why they call him Chopper, but I don't understand why they call him Tony Chopper. So if someone could explain that to me, I would really appreciate that. Secondly, when the quack doctor is trying to heal Chopper and he puts down that tranquilizer gun, and Chopper, freaks out because he thinks he's about to get shot again, and he hits the doctor and starts running away, and the doctor gets up and he says, I'm here to help you friggin' idiot, or whatever he says. Why is he naked in that scene? I get the symbolism. If they were going for symbolism, I get the symbolism of having, you're stripped bare, you're being as honest as you can be, this is me, I'm stripped bare, telling you with no falsehoods what I'm telling you, right? I get the symbolism of that, but is that why they did it, or was there something else? I remember seeing that scene and I was Chopper didn't rip his clothes off. The guy ripped his own clothes off to get up and be hey, you idiot, I'm here to help you. My next question is about Ace. Right at the end of this one, we come across information that a man named Ace is looking for Luffy. I'm not really asking a question about Ace, because I imagine that it's going to be explained to me in the next couple of arcs, but I just wanted to say that I'm really interested in finding out what's going to happen, because I thought from the original first picture before you find out his name is Ace that it might have been Shanks. I thought maybe Shanks was looking for Luffy, but it turns out it's some other guy named Ace. So I'm really looking forward to find out who this Ace guy is and why specifically he's looking for Luffy. Is he a bounty hunter? Because they also did mention at the end Luffy's $30 million bounty. And they also mentioned that Ace was also looking for Blackbeard. So in my mind, I'm he could very well be a bounty hunter, or he could be an old friend of Luffy's. And just on that as well, I think it's cool that Blackbeard the pirate, even if it's not based on any mythology of our Blackbeard that we know in this real human world, I like the idea of real pirates being part of the One Piece canon, being part of the mythology. And it makes me want to do research on, Blackbeard or real pirates to see if there is any nods or Easter eggs to the myths and legends of real pirates. Now, I actually really liked this arc, and I think the best way to go through it is chronologically. I feel as if there was a lot of really great storytelling elements in it. But firstly, I want to talk about this specific panel right here, where the princess calls out Luffy for being a bad captain, for like needlessly trying to endanger his crew. Specifically, Nami, sick Nami, she says, fighting isn't always the answer. If you were to fight these people right now, we wouldn't be able to get help for Nami. And Luffy realizes he's wrong and he says, I'm sorry, you're right. And he bows down with the princess and, they show their respect to the people and they say, please help us. And I actually really honestly liked that humbleness coming out of Luffy. I liked the fact that the princess called out Luffy for, punching first and asking questions later, which is something that I did mention in a couple of other reviews, how Luffy does just throw himself into the action. He's like, these people are pointing guns at me, yeehaw, let's go. But in this scene, the princess was like, that is not the answer here. You need to be respectful. We need their help. And it wasn't just the fact that the princess called out Luffy for it. It was the fact that Luffy was open and responsive to the criticism, which I found only made me like his character more. Because it felt like his first real tastes of taking on the responsibility of all of his crew and the position that he's in, and realizing that not all problems are solved with your fists. And I did really like that from him. And the other thing I really liked about that scene is it comes back when Luffy is carrying Nami up the mountain. Because when we see those rabbits, Luffy's obvious first response is, I'm going to use my fists. I'm going to gum gum bazooka these mofos off this mountain. And that's exactly what we expect from Luffy. That's exactly what he expects from himself. He is in a position where he can fight anything. Danger doesn't matter to him because he's a rubber man and he has these extraordinary strengths. But Sanjay says to him, you cannot fight these rabbits. Your only choice is to run, because anytime you attack them, you will be shaking up Nami. The shock that goes through your body will also be going through Nami. Anytime you get attacked or anytime you attack them. So your only choice here is to run. And we see Luffy kind of struggle with that idea, because at one or two points he does hit one of the rabbits and Sanjay's like, bro, no, your only choice is to run. And I did really enjoy that, just giving Luffy more responsibility, that giving Luffy some kind of a role that isn't just fighting. There is something more than just Luffy mindlessly punch. There is Luffy deny your instincts to save your friend. Usually his instincts is to punch things to save his friends, but in this case he had to not punch things to save his friend. And I don't know how his character grows throughout this story. I don't know if he takes on a lot more responsibility or not, but if he does become a lot more of a responsible person, I'm going to pen this, I'm going to coin this moment as the moment he really does start to see responsibility. And if in the future he doesn't really take on a lot of responsibility, that's fine. This was still a great humbling moment. This was still a great moment to show that he can be responsible in the correct situations. While we're talking about character growth and just brilliance of storytelling, I'm going to bring up Usopp once again. I'm sure that you guys are sick of me talking about Usopp and how I don't think he's a coward by now, but it is a great talking point and it is a great, well-written part of the story, so I can't just not talk about it. Let's talk about this moment here. It was this moment here that I realized that Usopp, as I've been saying throughout my reviews, Usopp, I don't think is a coward because, he doesn't have these massive, overpowered attacks and strengths and abilities to get sliced up and beat up and blown up and all that kind of stuff. His only abilities is to hide and shoot his slingshot. As you can see here, when they start getting under fire by Wapol, his instinct is to get behind the mask so he doesn't get shot. And it made me realize that Usopp is in this story to show us how we would react if we were in this story. I feel as if Usopp is meant to be a grounding tool. I feel as if he's meant to be a humanizing tool, a connection kind of tool for the audience for the story. It is if we were in that situation, we would have to be doing what Usopp is doing. Because we don't have, Zoro's ninja samurai skills. We don't have Luffy's gum gum skills. So if we were in this story, we would have to be doing what Usopp is doing. We would have to hide behind the mast while a hail of gunfire is coming. You know, we couldn't be like Luffy and just stand there, have all the bullets sink into us, and then just fling it back at our enemy. Maybe I'm looking too far into that. It will be interesting to see how Usopp grows throughout the story, because his character arc is really showing us that he wants to be a high seas warrior, and you know, he really vibes, he really connects with anybody that has this idea of a warrior's honor, such as Dalton right at the end when they pull Dalton out of the snow and he's all like messed up from taking 3 arrows in the chest. And Dalton's like, look, if I'm going to die for this country. I'm going to get up that mountain and I'm going to fight and, you know, die for my country. And Usopp has this moment where he's just like vibing with Dalton's like heroic courage, his like sense of sacrifice, his sense of duty, and Usopp's like, yep, I'm on board. I will carry you up that mountain so that way you can have your sense of duty, you can have your warrior's honor, you can have your warrior's death. I will help you get this. And honestly, it does kind of worry me. It does worry me that Usopp is being set up to die. Like, I would not be surprised in the least to find out that, like, Usopp's end of this story, like, let's say, you know, I heard that One Piece is coming to an end in the next, like, 5 years. I don't know how true that is. It's just a rumor I heard. In that 5 years, like, right at the end of the story, I would not be surprised to find out that Usopp dies in a heroic way. I would not be surprised at all to find out that that is his long-term character arc, dying a hero's death. More than likely on the sea. I mean, it's not the way that I would like his story to end, but it would make a lot of sense, and I could really, like, from this early on in the story, I can really feel his admiration towards a heroic sacrifice, and I could really see his story ending in a heroic sacrifice. Alright, and in the same vein of the log pose and the eternal pose and, you know, the mention of how, you know, certain towns and certain islands would have certain lengths of time that people would need to stay there in order to get their log pose to point in the correct direction or to map their magnetic fields or whatever, there was another great piece of exposition that would really set up this story. At some point, they're going to run out of great ideas and great pieces of exposition to set up their story for the rest of the story, but it hasn't happened yet. And in this one, it was the princess explaining the 16 different types of weather, or the 16 climate types, or whatever specific words they used. So it could be like the hottest summer or the dead coldest winter. But then she also explains that there are unknown weather patterns and there are also exceptions to the rule. And they also explain that it also is why the weather on the Grand Line is so, like, messed up. It's because each island has its own climate. So when all these climates smash together on the ocean, it just creates turmoil and chaos. So again, more exposition, more great writing tools that they can use later on. Again, like I say in every other review, it was set up from the start, so in the future it will never feel convenient or out of place because it was established at the start before it could feel convenient or out of place. Alright, let's move on to the doctor, Dr. Curie, the doctress. I feel like she was being set up as the, like, misdirection to make us think that we would be getting her on the pirate ship. Because obviously, one, she is the only doctor around, besides Chopper, which we didn't know about. Like, we were told that she is the only doctor around, and we were also told that she was basically a pirate, which is I believe it was Luffy said she's basically a pirate, or maybe it was one of the other people said it, because whenever she heals someone, she takes whatever she wants from their house as payment. So as the reader, we get like this classic misdirection of like the person that you obviously think is the person that they will get, or like the obvious bad guy or the obvious whoever, isn't actually the person we think they are. You know, we obviously think because she's got a lot of character development, she's very like funky and feisty and spunky, and she's got like a good rapport with these characters, like she's got good back and forth with them. She's the only doctor around, she's basically a pirate. All of these things lead us as the reader to believe that she will be the doctor that will be joining their crew. But then we get that classic misdirection of, surprise, it's actually the human reindeer. which I did really enjoy the fact that he was a reindeer that ate the human fruit instead of a human that ate the reindeer fruit. I think that there's so much more development of his character and so much more of a story to be told from a reindeer being accepted by humans. And we did get a lot of that in this story. The whole Chopper, thinking he's a monster, thinking he's an abomination, and he can't possibly be friends with humans. And I mean, that's just such a little thing that you would really think wouldn't make a difference, a reindeer eating the human fruit instead of a human eating the reindeer fruit. But it does make such a huge difference to long-term character developments, long-term character arcs. And it really does show these people's foreshadowing, foreplanning, writing skills to set themselves up to write anything that they possibly want. Because now they can write Chopper as awkward in human situations as possible. They can write him incredibly awkward, they could write him not awkward at all. And they would both fit. He could have holes in his knowledge of human activities, he could have holes in his knowledge of animalistic activities, and it would make sense. Whereas if he was a human that ate the reindeer fruit, it would not make sense for him to be a weird human, it would not make sense for him to not have knowledge of human customs and ways. So I think that simple distinction really did set them up to tell as much of the story as they want to tell. And honestly, I wish I had a separate document on my computer. I wish I was keeping track of all the little, great storytelling moments and tools that these people have set themselves up with. Because for one, it is great advice for a writer to see how a master storyteller can do these things. And I'm convinced this guy, Oda, is a master storyteller. And as an author, there is so much to learn about storytelling in this series. And I wish I'd been keeping note of the moments and the tools that they've used to foreshadow and to set themselves up to tell a story that they want to tell and is not stale. Alright, moving on from that, we also get a few classic Luffy moments in this story. When they first get into that town, I believe it's called Bighorn, if my memory serves me. They've got Nami inside and they're having that really serious conversation about the witch, about Dr. Cura, about the doctress, and how she lives on top of the mountain and the only way to get there is to climb up the mountain since all the ropes are cut. And it's all very serious and very intense stuff. And classic Luffy is outside with Usopp building snow monsters. But then Luffy finds out the situation is quite serious, so he goes in and he slaps Nami in the face to wake her up. And everyone's like, what the hell, Luffy? What are you doing? And us as the reader, we're like, classic Luffy, what the hell are you doing? But then we find out it's to get her consent to carry her up the mountain. Again, classic Luffy is just hitting people, but for a good reason. Let's talk about Dr. Cura, or the Doctress. I'm going to call her the Doctress from now on, because I'm sure if I'm saying her name wrong, people will be mad. So let's talk about the Doctress right now. I did very much enjoy her character. I enjoyed her crazy, over-the-top grandma, psycho killer throwing knives at people, but also, a good healer. There was a lot going on with her character, and I enjoyed it all. I will say that she did remind me of the Tiger King. I was getting a lot of just hardcore Florida vibes from her entire look and the way she acted and everything. And it did remind me a lot of the Tiger King. Just FYI, I believe it is official that there is a season 2 of the Tiger King coming out too. Just BT dubs. One of my favorite parts with her was when she was talking to Nami about the tick that bit her. I believe Nami was sick from a tick. And how she explains from, how sick you are, I can tell you've been sick for 2 days. This sickness only really lasts for 5 days. After 5 days, the fever naturally subsides, all the pain naturally subsides. And as the reader, we're just there oh, okay, cool, it all just naturally would have worked itself out. They should have just kept going at Alabasta. But then she goes yeah, it would have all naturally taken care of itself because you'd be dead. And I really enjoy that kind of humor, and I really enjoyed her character. Alright, now just to touch on a point that I did mention in my last review. I mentioned that, Luffy, out of nowhere, has just become, really muscly. Luffy's become, jacked. And I don't know if this was written in as like natural character progression or not, but it does make a hell of a lot of sense because, it makes sense that Luffy living a life on a pirate ship, like, I don't know if you've ever been on a boat before, but there's a lot of like hard work that goes into that. And especially because their crew is so small, it makes sense from like a natural strength progression that Luffy would become quite muscly, although he is still quite lean, like he's lean muscle. From just a natural progression of hard work on the boat, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. So I don't know if he was like always intended to be that muscly, or if they did just do it in a natural progression way, or if they were just like, hey, let's just draw Luffy jacked as fuck. I don't know, but it really does fit, and I really like muscly Luffy. I think it's cool as. And also one more thing I wanted to touch on from my last review. I said that I noticed that it was the first time that characters were being sexualized in that little garden review. And somebody commented, I wish I had the comment in front of me, somebody commented something along the lines of, the characters weren't sexualized. It's just that over here in the West, we're so like pedantic about, Luffy not having his shirt on, that we automatically think it's something that's been sexualized. And I really did like that comment. And I wish I had it in front of me so I could like read it verbatim, but it was something along those lines of like, it wasn't the intention to sexualize these characters. It was that we have just become too sensitive to that kind of thing. I don't know. It was a good comment though. Usually I talk about my comments at the beginning of these videos, but I don't have any in front of me because I'm inside of my car. Okay, I've been putting it off, but let's finally talk about the Doctor, like the Quack Doctor and Chopper. Their whole entire relationship was just fantastic. It was so beautiful. The like hardest part of that story is going into the story, like going into that, flashback or whatever you want to call it. That you should not get attached to that Doctor. Going into that Doctor will die. But it is so hard not to get attached to that Doctor. Especially when you see him like taking care of Chopper. There's like a little montage of them like hanging out, and they're, curing people, and they're getting chased out of the town together, and they're, looking at his bubbling cauldron thing, and it like explodes, and there's just this little montage of them like growing up and bonding together. But really, when it comes to that Doctor, we got to talk about like the big stuff that happens to him. He knows that he's dying, so he tries to scare away Chopper, so Chopper doesn't have to deal with the hurt of his only friend dying. Chopper overhears some of the like Doctor people talking about this one specific mushroom that can cure everything. And so Chopper goes to the Doctor's house and like rummages through and finds a book. Specifically a book about mushrooms, I suppose. And then he goes out into the wilderness and he goes looking for this one specific mushroom. And we don't know it at the time, but it's such a great, beautiful, sad, it's just like one of those like bittersweet, like if you ever needed an example of something that is both beautiful and sad at the same time, Chopper's story from like this moment on is that story. We know that Chopper went through the book and found a picture of a mushroom with a skull and crossbones beside it. And we know from earlier in the story, the foreshadowing, which is friggin' fantastic in One Piece, by the way. I say it in every review, so I don't know if I say it here, but let's say it. Foreshadowing in One Piece is just ridiculously well done. If you're an author and you need to learn how to do anything, this is the series. It's an absolute masterpiece. Anyway, so we know from the foreshadowing earlier that the Doctor pointed out the pirate flag, the skull and crossbones, and said, this is a symbol of like unwavering resolve or, unstoppableness or whatever it is he specifically says. But he says like this is a symbol for pirates, and pirates are just these like great people that don't let anything get in their way. It's like a symbol of unstoppableness. And so Chopper sees the picture of the mushroom with the skull and crossbones, and his only association with skull and crossbones is that pirate flag, which his association is unstoppableness. Anything, you can do anything behind this symbol. So he sees that symbol and he's like, this has got to be it. It's the unstoppable mushroom that can cure anything. But we don't know that at the time as the reader, and we just know that Chopper goes through like hell and back to get this mushroom. He gets beat up by all the other reindeer, and he's got, this issue and that issue, and he ends up getting there, and he gets the mushroom, and he gets back, and he gives it to the doctor, and he's just like beat to hell, and the doctor like patches him all up, and then, eats half the mushroom. He makes like a soup from half the mushroom. And at this point, as the reader, we believe the doctor still has 2 weeks of life left because he went to the doctoress earlier and asked for something to extend his life as long as she could, and she gave him 3 extra weeks. So at this point, we believe that he has 2 to 3 weeks left. But then after he eats the mushroom, he goes straight to the doctoress and is like, please take care of Chopper, teach him how to be a doctor. This is my life's work, here you go, here's my powder. And it all seems like very rushed. And as the reader, we don't really understand this yet. It's just like very rushed. We think he's drank this magical potion, even if it was just a placebo, like we don't know it's poison at the time, even if it was just a placebo, he still had 2 to 3 weeks left. So it seemed odd that he was rushing so hard. He was like, please take care of Chopper. Please teach him how to be a doctor. I know you put on this like scary front, but I know deep down you're a great person because you dedicate your life to helping people. So please just help me out. And he's really like borderline begging her. And we don't really understand it because, as I keep saying, we think he's still got time. And then he rushes off to go and find the MD-20, the only 20 doctors that are left at the top of the mountain with Wapol and all of his people. And that whole, like, them luring the quack doctor up to the thing by, like, not giving anyone medical attention and saying that all 20 of the doctors have come down with, like, an illness, brilliant. And incredibly evil. But, like, from a storytelling perspective, it was really solidly well done. Thoroughly impressed. Anyway, so the doctor races up to the mountain and he gets up to the top and he gets there and he's like, show me to the sick doctors. I'm going to take care of them. And we still don't really know that he's like about to die yet. And Wapol's there and he's just like, you fool, these people weren't sick. It was just a trick to lure you up here so we could execute you. And in that moment, the quack doctor is like thoroughly relieved and just starts laughing and is just like, I'm glad that no one's sick. Like that's the best case scenario for me. I'm glad that these 20 people aren't just down with a mystery illness. I don't care that you've lured me up here to execute me. I'm just glad that these people aren't sick. And it's just another one of those moments that it's like, I know I'm not meant to like this doctor. I know that I'm not meant to be attached to him and he's about to die. But in that moment, it's hard not to. And especially because he knew that Wapol and all of his people were trying to execute him. And so he went up that mountain expecting to die. He went up there knowing that they would execute him. And he wanted that because he drank Chopper's poison mushroom juice, and so he only had 1 hour left to live. And so he went up to the mountain because he didn't want Chopper to have to live with the fact that Chopper's mushroom juice killed him. So he went up hoping or expecting that they would execute him, and then Chopper would know that it wasn't his mushroom that killed him, it was Wapol executing him. But even then, he doesn't let Wapol execute him. He like blows himself up with his own like chemical concoctions. And then we get the scene, and if I've got the panel, I'll like put it up here. We get the scene where, the doctoress comes and, she sees the reindeer, and the reindeer is just like, why is he going to like go and die? I made him the magic mushroom juice. I like found him this magic mushroom that will like cure everything. I've saved his life. He's going to live. He's going to be happy. He's like blah, blah, blah. And then the doctoress looks at the mushroom and she looks at the picture in the book and sees the skull and crossbones, and it's the like first time we see it. And everything gets recontextualized. Everything gets explained. All the like foreshadowing, all of the like story beats, all just tie together in this one moment. This one picture of the book with the mushroom next to the skull and crossbones. And that's something that One Piece is just excels at, is just the recontextualization of the story. And in this one, it's the best one so far. When we see that mushroom and the skull and crossbones, and Chopper says, we get the explanation of his, like, it's the symbol of the flag. The flag is, like, unstoppable. Anything can happen behind this flag. That's why this mushroom was the mushroom. And, like, you just see the doctress, and she is just like, oh. And she has to explain to the reindeer that it's actually poison, and that old mate only had 1 hour to live. Honestly, this one, I'm going to have to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that this has been my favorite one, or my favorite, like, arc I've read so far. It's right up there with Arlong Park, right? You got Arlong Park, you got this one. They're just some of the great stories being told. We get some other, let's move on from that. We get some other, like, great character moments or, like, well-written moments when they're all fighting on top of the mountain. There's, like, Luffy's crew and Wapol's crew. They're all fighting on top of the mountain. And I think it's the first time everyone sees Luffy's Gum Gum Power. And Chopper is like, what is he? And Sanjay looks at Chopper and says, he's a monster. And that really speaks to Chopper in that moment, because that's something that he's been struggling with, people seeing him as a monster and people calling him a monster, like people using that word. And I don't know if Sanji did it on purpose, but the writer definitely did it on purpose. And that was just another one of those, like, great moments that I wanted to mention. Again, just from, like, a writing standpoint, we do see the characters get, like, their legs broken, so to speak. Like, the characters get taken out of the fight. We see at the beginning Zoro, we see his scars and his, like, stitched up scars on his legs from when he was gonna chop off his legs in the big wax candle to go and kill everyone with no legs. Right, so he doesn't really have a lot to do with this story, right? We also see the same thing happen, like Sanjay break his legs, because when he gets caught in that avalanche, he, like, fractures his back, or he breaks his back or something, gets some kind of back injury. And so when the big fight is happening, the doctress, like, kicks him in the back to take him out of the fight, because obviously if he keeps fighting, he's going to cause himself real damage. But from a writing standpoint, we see that Zoro's not there and Sanji's not there, so it gives the others a chance to shine, specifically Chopper. We get to see Chopper eat the marble thing that he eats, which I have a feeling is going to be a big part of his story. We get to see him transform through his 7 transformations. And just taking, like, these two overpowered people, Zoro and Sanjay, out of the fight really gives Chopper a chance to highlight all of his skills and really get that emotional development of beating up the people that executed his dad. But we also get the emotional development of Luffy, protecting the flag. We get the development of Luffy saying, leave Chopper alone, or don't say Chopper's friendless because I'm his friend. And then he, like, goes and beats up everyone. So, just another, like, piece of great storytelling that I thought I would mention. The last thing I'll mention is I really liked how Luffy and Sanjay were, like, chasing Chopper all throughout. In the beginning, they, like, wanted to eat Chopper, and then, like, after they see Chopper, like, do all this cool stuff, they're like, okay, now we want him on the crew. And then right at the end of the story, Nami is talking to the princess, or the princess is talking with Nami, whatever, and I believe the princess says, I'm really glad that we now have a doctor on board. And Luffy and Sanjay are just like, what? Chopper's a doctor? And it was just one of those, like, really just dumb, funny things, like, they'd been trying to eat him, and then they'd been trying to recruit him, and, like, the whole time they didn't even know he was a doctor, which is exactly what they needed. Before we go, I do have one question to ask, though. What is the time skip? I keep hearing and, like, seeing information about something called the time skip. I imagine it's exactly what it sounds like a year or two passes between arcs or between sagas or whatever. Can somebody tell me if I'm correct? But also, can someone tell me when the time skip happens? Also, I heard a rumor that a lot of the goofy humor is lost after the time skip. Is that true? I wouldn't consider that a spoiler if you were to tell me whether or not the goofy humor is lost after the time skip. And anyway, that's the end of this review. Definitely one of my favorite ones. That all of Chopper's backstory was just awesome. Loved it. One of my favorite arcs that I've read so far in One Piece. It's definitely one or two right up there. Really enjoyed it. If you haven't already, check out my other channel, my bartending channel. I did some One Piece cocktails. I think next week I'm releasing a video about Wheel of Time cocktails. I've got another One Piece cocktail video that I've got in the works. I'll link that channel down below in the description. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, and as always, thank you very much.